Big Bang. Thomas is a cheeky engine. He likes to have fun with his friends. He loves playing tricks on the big engines like Gordon. He enjoys joking with James. And he likes playing hide and peep with Percy. One day, Thomas brought some empty trucks into the wharf. Duncan was there. "What are you doing there, Thomas?" he asked. "I'm bringing some more trucks for you," said Thomas. "Well, put them on siding 3, snapped Duncan, and he puffed away. "Well, that was a bit rude," said the confused Thomas. He knew Duncan wasn't the nicest engine, but he had never been that rude to him. But it only got worse as the day progressed. Every time Thomas met a narrow-gauge engine that wasn't Scarloey, Renes, or Freddy, they would constantly give him orders like army guards over and over and over again. "Put those trucks on siding 6, barked Peter Sam. "Hurry up with those fuel tankers," huffed Mighty. "We haven't got all day, you know," barked Mac. Thomas was extremely annoyed. He was glad when he left to get a new whistle at the works. Later, Thomas puffed into Knapford Station. Gordon was waiting there. As Thomas puffed in, he blew his new whistle loudly. "Ah, what was that?" gasped Gordon. "Why, that was my new whistle," chuckled Thomas. "Sorry I scared you." "Pah, a whistle like that is enough to scare anyone," grumbled Gordon, and he puffed away. Later that day, Thomas puffed into the wharf. Mr. Percival, Duncan, and Peter Sam were all there. "Thomas," said Mr. Percival, "Renes, Sahando, and Mighty Mac will be bringing bricks, flour, and logs. They must be loaded into your trucks by this evening." And with that, Mr. Percival left. Just then, Reneus puffed in with trucks of pipes. Thomas was pleased. This was his chance to pay the narrow-gauge engines back for bossing him around. So, he blew his whistle loudly. Reneus shot forward. His flatbed smashed into an old brake van. His pipes fell off the flatbeds and nearly ran over a workman's hut. Duncan laughed until he thought his boiler would burst. Even Peter Sam thought it was funny. But Reneus didn't. "You could have caused a serious accident," he shouted. "You're very lucky there weren't any workmen in that hut and it didn't fall over." "I'm sorry," said Thomas sadly. He hadn't meant to cause a nasty accident. "I'll get the breakdown crane and clean up." "Good," said Reneus. "Now then, I need some water before collecting those timber trucks." And he shuffled away. "What does he know?" whispered Peter Sam to Duncan. "We were only having a bit of fun." "Aye," said Duncan. "Let's go and whistle at someone else." And the two engines chuffed away. Later, Mighty Mac puffed into the wharf. They were pulling trucks filled with bricks to be loaded into Thomas's empty trucks. They didn't know Duncan and Peter Sam were hiding behind some vans. As Mighty Mac shunted their train into the transfer siding, both engines blew their whistles loudly. Mighty Mac bumped their truck so hard that the coupling snapped and their train ran backwards into Rusty, who was refueling at the refueling depot. Rusty was covered in red brick dust. All 3 steam engines and a half laughed. But Rusty was cross. "That wasn't funny," he snapped. "Can't you see that I'm refueling? You might have caused an accident." And he rattled crossly away. Mighty Mac were upset. "That was a good joke Peter Sam and Duncan played on us," chuckled Mighty. "Why don't we play the joke on someone else?" agreed Mac. And the double-ended engine set off and hid in the warehouse. Sir Handel arrived with his trucks of flour. He couldn't see Mighty Mac. They blew their whistles loudly. Sir Handel jumped forward and banged his trucks into some coaches. The trucks exploded and flour poured all over him. Mighty Mac couldn't help laughing. You look like a ghost, chuckled Mac. Ooh, laughed Sir Handel. Look at me, I'm a ghost. And he steamed away. Now, Sir Handel wanted to have some fun, and he came up with an idea. Reneus is on his way. I'll peep him, he puffed to himself. Reneus trundled into the wharf. Sir Handel got ready with his whistle. Peep! Reneus shot forward. He was so surprised he accidentally went down the track towards the pier. He bumped into Scarlowy. Scarlowy bumped into Freddy. Freddy bumped into Rusty. Rusty burst through the buffers, smashed through the oil drum, stacked on the wharf, and splashed into the canal. Freddy went with him. Luckily, Reneus and Scarlowy didn't fall in as well. Unluckily, Scarlowy's front wheels were dangling off the edge of the pier. Fortunately, Reneus' train stayed on the rails. Unfortunately, not all of them did. His trucks had bumped into each other, and some of them tipped over, and the timber fell into the sea. "Oh my!" cried Sir Handel. Mr. Percival arrived. "Sir Handel, what are you playing at?" he shouted. "You have caused delay and confusion." "I'm sorry, sir," wheezed Sir Handel sadly, "but this wasn't my idea. I got it from Mighty Mac." "We got it from Duncan and Peter Sam," said Mighty Mac. "It was Thomas who started it," said Duncan. "I'm sorry, sir," said Thomas sadly. "I didn't mean to cause all this destruction, but the narrow gauge engines have been bossing me around. But I guess two wrongs don't make a right." "Exactly, Thomas," said Mr. Percival sharply. "We're sorry, Thomas. We didn't mean to make you upset," said Duncan. "Truth be told, we were upset about the hot weather," chuffed Peter Sam. "We didn't mean to take our anger out on you," puffed Mighty. "Can you forgive us?" said Mac. "Of course," said Thomas. "Right, now that that's all settled," said Mr. Percival, "you all must have this mess cleaned up by 5 o'clock. But you'll have to be quick, because there's a lot to clean up." And he walked away. "How are we going to clean this mess by 5 o'clock?" chuffed Duncan. "Well," said Sir Handel, "we'll all have to work together." "That's right," chuffed Peter Sam. "Working together makes a job easier. Right, Mighty Mac?" Mighty Mac just frowned. "All right," said Thomas. "If we work together and work quickly, we'll have this mess cleaned up in no time." So Thomas and the narrow gauge engines worked together to clean up the wharf. Sir Handel pulled Reneus and Scarlowy back onto the tracks. The timber was loaded back into Reneus' train, and he shunted the trucks into the sidings, where they were loaded into Thomas's empty trucks. Rusty and Freddy were also lifted out of the water. Rusty and Mighty Mac worked together to clean up the transfer sidings. Rusty shunted the trucks of bricks into the sidings too. Duncan and Peter Sam worked together to pick up the pipes. Then they shunted the pipes into sidings 3 to 5. The warehouse was cleaned up, and Sir Handel took the red coaches to be fixed at the works. Freddy went to pick up new trucks of flour. When he returned, they were loaded into the empty trucks, and Thomas shunted them into the sidings as well. Finally, Thomas had one long train of bricks, flour, and lumber, and it wasn't even 5 o'clock. When Mr. Percival came back, he was very impressed. "My, what a wonderful job!" he cried. "Now, have you all learned anything today?" "Oh, yes, sir, we have, sir. We learned that working is more important than goofing off," chuffed Duncan. "And," said Peter Sam, "we also learned that whistling loudly in a busy place like the wharf is very dangerous." It could cause massive destruction everywhere you go. Rheneas and Rusty chuckled. They knew who taught them that. Right, said Mr. Percival. Now then, Thomas, where are your trucks? Said Mr. Percival crossly. Thomas smiled. He had been hiding his trucks. Here they are, sir, he whistled happily, loaded up and ready to go. The narrow gauge engines laughed, and Mr. Percival laughed too. Thomas, he said, that was a good trick. You are a really funny engine. And Thomas puffed away. He knew Mr. Percival didn't mean it. Thomas, Duncan, and Peter Sam can still be cheeky at times, but I think they know that sometimes having fun can be very dangerous. Don't you?